Up until now, we've looked at the Google Ads interface or the basic Google Analytics reports to get an idea on how our campaigns are performing. So when you get deeper into it, it's also more interesting to spend more time in Google Analytics to really get the details of what you're doing instead of just broad strokes. And one concept that's important is to understand last click attribution. And what this does is it looks at the last click or the last interaction before a conversion took place. So if somebody did a search for your brand name and then converted, that's that interaction. And what last click attribution does is it assigns all of the credit to that last interaction. So it kind of is blind to what happened before. So maybe they first came into a generic shopping campaign and then a branded shopping campaign, and then they converted. So all of the credit goes to that last campaign. And this is the default in Google Analytics reports. And it's good to get started, but as you already see from this simple example that I gave, the reality is a lot more complex. So here you can see the different stages that a buyer goes through. So you have awareness, consideration, intent, and then the decision. And the higher priced the item is, probably the more important all of those stages become. And you can also see the interaction between the different channels. So you have paid search, you have referrals, you have direct traffic, email, social. They all interact, and they are more important at specific parts in your funnel or in the customer's buyer journey. And there's interaction between all sorts of things, between campaigns. I gave the example of a generic and a branded campaign, but it could also be between different campaign types. So maybe you pull them to the site with an organic search result, but then you actually got the conversion with a remarketing campaign. So there's also interactions between the channels. As I said, maybe you get them to the site through SEO, but then they sign up for a newsletter and then they convert via email. And there's also interactions between devices. People are surfing on their mobile phone, and then at a later time they remember you, or when they need it, they come back via desktop. And you can see that the reality is very messy and a lot more complicated than that last click. So attribution, as I said, it's a very complex topic. Even for me, I've had a lot of experience with stores of many different kinds and many different sizes, and with each customer it's a complex discussion again, and it's really a unique discussion because the customer, my customers are very different as well. Like the market is different, and a B2B buyer will behave completely different from a B2C buyer, or also in different markets, how people do research will be different. So I would just want to say that there's a lot of it out there, but in this particular lesson, I want to take a look at Google Analytics, at a Google Analytics report called Assisted Conversions Report. And this really is a report where you start diving into the world of attribution. And what this report does is it gives you an idea of what happens besides that only looking at that last click conversion. So here I'm in the Google Analytics account for one of my clients, and I've selected one particular campaign. You can see here that the cost and the revenue, there's about around like a 300% ROAS, because we brought in like 2,700 almost, and it cost 850. So that's around like a 300% ROAS. And this particular client needs around like 250% just to break even. So we're just above that break even mark. So just looking at this campaign from this perspective, it's actually not that great, or the direct impact is not that great. So when we just started running this campaign, we didn't really put a lot of budget behind it because we thought that the impact wasn't that big. But then we discovered the Assisted Conversions Report. And Assisted Conversions Report in your account, you can find it under Conversions, Multi-Channel Funnels, and then Assisted Conversions. Then here you switch from all to Google Ads to just see the impact of the campaigns. This report shows an overview of all the assisted conversions that all of these campaigns did. And what is an assisted conversion? An assisted conversion means that this particular campaign was part of the conversion path that a customer took before they purchased. Remember that Google Analytics only looks at last click? Well, this report also takes into account all the other interactions. So if you see here like 109, it means that it was part of 109 conversion paths and of 93 as last click. So I want to take a look at this particular campaign. So this one, this third one, this is actually the campaign that we were looking at before. So we have 52 assisted conversions, 4,000 euro in assisted conversion value, 25 last clicks, and 1,900 euro in last click conversion value. That is a little bit lower than we saw in the previous reports. That's because these multi-channel funnels, they use different data, so that's why these reports are a little bit different. But we're not here to look at the exact values. This report is more to get a feeling for all of the for the true impact, because the numbers also don't add up. If you add up here all the assisted conversions or all of the conversion value, you'll come onto an amount that's a lot bigger than the actual conversion value. That's because there's a lot of double counting here. So if this first campaign and this second campaign actually are both in the conversion path, they will get counted 2 times here. So important here is to see, okay, we have 50. So if we take a look here at this last column, this is the assisted the amount of assisted conversions divided by the amount of last click conversions. And for this campaign, that gives a number of 2. So for each sale that we saw in the regular reports, it contributed to another 2 sales. So that's like a huge driver of extra sales. And that means that this campaign is a campaign that targets a lot of people earlier in the buyer journey and that gets people to the website, but isn't actually the main converter. So this is a great thing that you can see about this report, to see how actually some campaigns don't contribute a lot to the last click conversions, but do a lot of assisting work. So here the top one, that's really high, and that's because it's a branded search campaign. And here you can see 10. So for this particular campaign, it only made 2 sales. For every sale that it makes, it contributes to another 10 sales. And you will see this number being very high. And that's because it's a dynamic remarketing campaign. And the reason why it's that high is, one, that it works pretty well, but also people that were going to convert anyway often see that dynamic remarketing ad. So even if they were planning to come back to the website later, a lot of those impressions probably weren't necessary. So that's why you often see that this is very high. But nevertheless, it shows that this is actually the glue that keeps a lot of these campaigns together. A small variation of this report is the top conversion paths, where you can see the actual campaigns, how they successively work. So here we can see the top conversion paths. We can see all of the different campaigns and how they interact with each other. Here you can see that a lot of them are unavailable, and that's because it's a different channel than Google Ads. If you switch it on here to all, you'll be able to see the different channels, but you won't be able to see the actual campaigns. So you have to choose. But I always like to look at both. And you can see really which campaigns contribute to which part of the buying cycle. So I hope that was helpful in giving you like a glimpse on what happens in attribution and how you can get started with it and get a better idea of the true impact of your campaigns.